this initiative of Doge and this initiative of Make America Healthy Again with RFK and HHS is simply to put us back on track in America, where money is not the motive, but health is. Hey, what's going on? This is Nate Chatzline, and you're watching the For Liberty and Justice podcast, where we seek to mobilize the church, wake up the city, and take a stand for liberty and justice in the governmental realm. Today, we have another episode of Canceled at the Roundtable, and we've got incredible guests, and really they're not guests. This is just the family. You'll come to know that this is going to be the crew with special guests added on. But going down the line, we have Joanna Hinojosa. We've got the one and only Jack, who's on all of our episodes at this point. I mean, you're just a staple. You're a household name. And then we have Josh, and Josh is filling in until we find someone better. I'm just kidding. Honor is our value. So we honor you, Josh.
That look.
And so all that said, today we're going to be discussing, and it truly is a discussion. Our heart in these episodes is really just to break down in conversation form the issues that are coming at our country today. And we're going to give the unapologetic truth, even if we are canceled at the round table, which ironically is a rectangle table. But all that said, let's jump in right now and talk about Trump's address to the nation, which was, I mean, I would say, in my opinion, arguably one of the greatest political speeches I've ever heard in my entire life. Initial reactions, Joanna, starting with you.
I just love that in the first minute, he just says, America is back. You know, just the fact that he said that so boldly. I loved it. I thought it was great. I think he had so many great talking points throughout the whole address. And I mean, there's so many things that happened. So I really want to go get down to the bottom of everything that went down. But I think the biggest highlight for me was, well, not really a highlight, but just kind of a shocker, was Al Green.
Oh,
what
man.
happened
He was
there?
censured. He was censured.
I know.
So he jumped up, obviously, and was making just a huge mess in the middle of the chamber. And this goes against all decorum that, it's just common practice inside of the U.S. House. But on top of it all, I mean, he's shaking his cane, he's screaming at the president. And I just loved Mike Johnson stood up and called the sergeant at arms to escort him out. By the way, got a standing ovation when they escorted him out, because it was just lunacy. And in the process, the House Freedom Caucus called for his censure, and it actually prevailed in the ultimate vote of the House. And so he was censured. Now, the ramifications of censure, I was censured by the Texas GOP caucus for going after other Republicans. So I don't know how powerful the word censure is, but I do love that we're censuring people for the right reasons right now. And so what do you think, Jack? Did he deserve to be censured?
I think so. He had multiple opportunities to sit down and just kind of swallow whatever he was going through right then, but he didn't. He kept pushing forward. I don't know.
Which we had to do with Biden.
Yeah.
We had to do that.
Right.
Yeah.
I don't know what he was trying to prove.
He was clearly very upset, because that happened within the first 10 minutes or 5 minutes of his address. It was really early on.
Yeah.
So I knew he was really upset about something.
I saw a quote that he said, as a man of conscience, I just had to do it. And I don't understand that in the slightest.
Yeah. Did anybody hear what he actually said?
I was trying to figure that out.
I was trying to lip
still
read.
don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know what he was yelling about, but
yeah, not sure if it was drug induced. No, I'm just kidding. It seemed erratic.
Yeah.
Just incredibly erratic. And it really, the nature in which Al Green interrupted the address is the same nature in which Democrats are being viewed all across the country right now.
Yeah.
And that's not to say that there aren't, people who the Lord's doing a work on their heart and they're Democrats. It is to say that the Democrat Party has gone so far left that it leads to a night where young boys that have beat brain cancer aren't cheered for. Where people, young ladies who have been raped to death on the southern border, no one honors them from the left on that side of the party. And so it's just really hard to even have a palate for that type of just brazen hate for America and hate for our values and truly Trump derangement syndrome, which is what we're seeing.
What it is.
I thought it was funny though that he started going on his rant right in the beginning whenever he was saying Trump was just talking about the facts of the election. He was all like, November 5th, this is what happened. We got, 312 electoral votes. And then he just starts yelling and screaming like something was wrong.
I don't know how the left thinks that that's virtuous.
Yeah.
I don't know how they think it's virtuous. Trump was like, I remember distinctly, one of the most impactful things Trump said, he was like, can we just for one night, put aside all this nonsense and celebrate good things happening in America? And they couldn't.
And then he dared them to stand and clap.
Yeah.
He dared them.
Yeah.
I know.
And it was like, because he already knew going in. We understand the people that we're dealing with on the left. They do not use logical reasoning in their arguments. I would like to think that we as believers can celebrate things even if it's done by someone who we disagree with on other topics.
Yeah.
And I think we showed that with the appointment of RFK.
Yeah.
Well, I don't agree with RFK on everything, but I love his stance on vaccine freedom.
Yep.
And we can celebrate that while also saying, hey, I disagree with you on the topic of abortion. And so it's like, but for some reason we don't see that.
You want to know what I want to celebrate? It's slightly off topic, but I want to celebrate that Gavin Newsom actually had a
talk with Charlie Kirk.
And he said it is definitely unfair for men to compete in women's sports. So I think
That's the governor of California.
That's the governor of California, and he is an outspoken progressive leftist, and he's saying, you know what? I actually do think that's unfair. Like maybe this is actually just. Maybe he's like the first domino. Maybe dominoes will start falling of other like Democrats to be like, you know what? I actually do think that idea is really messed up. I don't agree with that. Maybe we're starting to see the beginning of something.
I'll tell you this. So here was what was so cool. So me and my wife last night were doom scrolling. Sadly, we shouldn't do that, but we're doom scrolling and looking at the Gavin Newsom interview specifically with Charlie Kirk, which honestly, like props to both of them for being able to have a civil conversation.
Yeah.
Because I'm not sure ideologically there are two people further apart than Charlie Kirk and Gavin Newsom. And so, looking at that conversation, one of the things that was said as a joke but actually went a long way with me was Gavin Newsom said that the morning of the interview, his own son, who I believe is 13,
Oh, yes, I saw that.
which is so cool, he said he was begging to skip school and come meet Charlie Kirk.
Wow.
And Gavin's like, whoa. He's like, why? You're going to school. Why would you want to meet Charlie Kirk? And apparently, Gavin Newsom's son follows all of Charlie Kirk's TikTok videos.
Wow.
So we're looking. Okay, so I just got to celebrate this. We are winning.
Yes.
If the son of quite possibly one of the most progressive leftist governors in America is being won over at the core of his heart by a voice like Charlie Kirk, who has been accused of being a bigot, a Christian nationalist, a white supremacist, all of which are not true, right? Maybe Christian nationalism because he loves our nation, he loves God, but like is not any of those other things.
Yeah.
If his heart's being won over, we are winning.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
We're winning back the hearts
So
of Gen
good.
Z and Gen Alpha.
Yes.
This is
so
big.
good.
I think one of the things that stood out to me, it actually kind of highlighted the whole entire event when Trump, as he got further into the speech. He's talking about, they won't even stand up and clap. They can't clap for anybody. They have like no honor, for all intents and purposes, this is what he's saying. They have no honor. They can't do this. They're incapable of it.
Yeah.
And I'm like, the question that people oftentimes ask is, why can't, Congress get along? That's why. That right there, it highlights why we can't, because we have diametrically opposing values and ideas.
Yeah.
There's no common ground. They don't honor people who are raped and have cancer because they hate people. They hate Donald Trump. They're full of anger and vitriol. Now, the difference between us and them, one of the big differences, is the fact that we can look at them and go, we recognize that you hate us, but we still are going to love you anyway because you're a human being and you're made in the image of God. Whereas they will look at it and go, you're made in the image of everything I hate, and I want you destroyed. I want if I could have you killed, I would, right? And so that's the spirit they carry. And so and to Nate's point, I think that our side is prevailing now. I'm thankful that Charlie Kirk is out there and all, and of course we are too. Voices rising up. But man, that whole entire speech, and as he went further and further into the speech, he's just basically calling him out. I love one of my favorite parts is when he said, when he was talking about taxation. He goes, by the way, Mr. Speaker, I want you to put that taxation bill and get that repealed. And he goes, I hope that the people on my left side, he goes, and on my right side, you're going to vote for it too, because if you don't, you will not be elected again, and I will make sure of it. And they're all,
and just so, in case you didn't watch it, he was talking to the Democrats on the right side.
Yes, correct.
Yeah.
He's talking to the Democrats. And I'm like, thank you. Donald Trump, this is one thing that got him elected the very first time. He says what everybody is thinking in their living room. What you're doing when you're watching TV, you're throwing popcorn at the screen or going, come on, and you're like letting it all out in the living room.
You just gave us a picture.
I know. I'm like
Josh's
what you
living
look
room.
like.
That's what he's doing.
Shirtless Josh holding a pizza slice, tossing popcorn.
Hey, that was me 3 nights ago when that severe storm came through outside.
So.
Yeah. What I love the most about that address is that he was even saying is like nothing that I say, nothing that I do is going to make the Democrats happy.
Correct.
And it's very evident because even though he brought DJ, who was a survivor of cancer, who's 13 years old, they brought the mother of Jocelyn Nungary, they brought the family of Blake and Riley, and he was literally honoring them and just paying respect to what they have gone through. And nobody from the Democratic side stood up. Like that to me is just like, how can you not stand up for something like that? How can you not honor just because it's Trump who's saying it? Like that to me is just, you can really tell where that Trump derangement syndrome is actually occurring within the party.
So I would tell you one of the things that I want to highlight about what you just said is that Democrats right now, like today's Democrats, I'm not saying it's always been this way because the Democrat Party of our grandfather's generation was a totally different party.
Absolutely,
They were union parties. They didn't give in to this like weird transsexual ideology. Like they didn't do that.
Yep.
But one of the things that I've watched and can back up even with primaries and Democrat primary challengers is if you're in the Democratic Party, they expect you to fully submit and groupthink. And so what I mean by that is you lose your individual liberties to think as an individual when you join the Democrat Party of today. We saw that with someone like Sean Theory, who is a state representative in Texas, who even though she was a Democrat representing Houston and one of the more progressive districts inside the state of Texas, when it came to banning gender mutilation for minors, she stood up and said, hey, I'm a Democrat. This is crazy. I'm voting to ban gender mutilation for minors, then Save Women's Sports. Hey, this is crazy. I'm a Democrat. Men shouldn't be competing in women's sports. And when that happened, she stood on principle. We were so proud of her. She was celebrated. And then guess what? They ran a primary challenger with a leftist progressive. The leftist progressive won. And then Sean Theory announced, I'm switching parties to the Republican Party. It wasn't that Sean Theory became a Republican overnight. It's that the Democrat Party left Sean Theory because they don't allow for free thinking.
Yeah.
Right.
And that's the
common
thing that's
sense.
happening, honestly, with a lot of people who were Democrat. I was a Democrat. I'll be very upfront about that. But I used to be a Democrat, and my husband and I both were. And we said, you know what, this is who we were. And then a part of me also, as I reflect on it, that's probably what I was conditioned to believe because I'm Hispanic, of being in high school and going to school here. However, to me, it's like the more I started realizing the things that the Democratic Party was going for, I started realizing I'm not for that. I'm not for abortion. I'm not for trans rights. I'm not for that. I was like, I cannot sit here and say that I'm going to allow all of these things to happen under my watch whenever I'm clearly against it because of my faith in Jesus. Yeah. And I remember having this moment where I was like processing with the Lord, even like, Lord, how is it that, politically, there's so many different things that are happening within the Democrat Party, and I cannot align myself with that, but I don't feel like I'm a Republican. And the Lord really reminded me in that moment, like, it's not about Democrat, Republican. You are my child. You are a child of God, and you need to obey and walk in my commandments first and foremost before anything else. And that to me gave me so much peace because I realized it doesn't matter like whether I have a D or an R next to me. What matters is that I have Christ inside of me, and that's who I'm going to be obeying. I'm going to be obeying the word of God because that is what I need to stand for.
And as far as it goes with the progressive left, I mean, their tactics are fear and intimidation. And what you're saying about just like the left leaving people behind, Gavin Newsom, I'm going to go back to this in the podcast with Charlie Kirk. He said one thing. He said, I actually think that men competing in women's sports is extremely unfair. Yeah. I mean, that's a truth that we all know. Like everybody knows that. And immediately you have other people on the left tweeting so many vulgar things at him. You coward. You're not standing up for the trans. You're a coward. Like, it's the fear and intimidation. It's all they know.
That defies
That's what
logic.
unifies them.
Yeah.
They're unified by fear and intimidation.
Yeah.
Like what a sad
We
way
see
to
that with
unify.
vaccine mandates. We see that with every other tyrannical thing, shutting down businesses, shutting down churches. This is, and to Gavin Newsom's credit, I mean, that was one of the only bold or even common sense things I've heard him say.
Yep.
But Trump, I texted Josh and was like, I need you to find the top 20 quotes for this. And so this is all Josh's work on the For Liberty and Justice page. But the first one I want to hit is, he said, common sense has now become a common theme and we will never go back. And I truly believe that President Trump has, and maybe one of the reasons that he had such a resounding victory is it's not just that he has the right framework of how he says things. He's a brilliant communicator. It's not just that he's fighting for the right things. It's that he firmly has a pulse on the nation. Like he understands the people, the American people. Right. And what we have all been feeling is, are we living in some utopian society where truth is no longer truth anymore? And these things that he's saying of common sense used to be universally accepted. Like these are not new ideas. It's almost like just reminding everyone, hey, we support law enforcement. Hey, these laws of protecting children are good. And so that was one of the best ones. But it goes on. He said, our message to every child in America, and this goes along with common sense, is that you are perfect exactly the way God made you.
Yes.
I love that.
Yes, absolutely.
No, it's
And
so
that's what we
true.
need parents to say.
It's so true. And what I think is so funny, one thing that I was thinking about as I'm watching this whole, his address, was the fact that I was like, these aren't even necessarily like straight up Christian concepts out of the Bible, though they are, by the way. They are those. But it's not like we're saying we're going to put the Bible back in school as something overtly Christian. We're just going to go back to something like common sense, what should be common knowledge. Don't let little kids have their body parts chopped off.
Yeah.
We're going to tell kids the truth that you're a boy, Johnny, you're a boy, and Jennifer, you're a girl, and that everybody, it's like what Thomas Jefferson talked about. They're self-evident truths. Like it doesn't require rocket science. You don't have to go to school for 20 years to figure this out or get a college degree. You're a boy because your body parts tell you that,
One of my favorite things that Charlie
great.
Kirk does is that he'll ask people on the left, it's like, so define, what is a woman? And and they're just saying like, well, I don't know. I don't know. And it makes me laugh because I'm like, really, you can't define what a woman is? Like, it's super simple.
Kenji Jackson.
Hi, I'm a woman right here.
She's now our Supreme Court justice. She's on the Supreme Court. She was asked that by the Senate in the hearing. They said, what is a woman? And she goes, well, I can't define that. Like, if you can't
I'm not
tell
a
me
biologist.
yeah, that's right. I'm not a biologist. Like,
exactly.
Yeah, and I'm not a weatherman. My dad is, but I'm not. And I could look outside and go, oh, it's raining. There's a twister right
People
there.
with a master's degree in gender studies can't even define a woman.
No, they can't. That's why they're
Isn't that what you're studying?
You know what I found? Josh will take any opportunity to talk about weather. This is true. That's true. This man loves him a rainstorm.
Oh my gosh.
Like, I'm telling you,
Tornadoes
it throws
and hail.
me
What
off.
was going on the other night with the tornado warning? For
We
you?
could be, look, we could be
great.
talking about anything in the world, and he's like, "Well, the latest hurricane tells us something." You're like, "What is happening?" Oh
The
man.
latest hurricane says the sky is falling.
Oh man.
But back to the quotes, I think my favorite quote out of the night was over 130,000 people, according to the Social Security databases, are over 160 years old. We have a healthier country than I thought, Bobby. Oh
And
my
he's talking
gosh.
to RFK Jr. And
That was so funny.
well, that goes along with like this whole thing of like we have an epidemic on our hands. We have so many people that live to be 160, guys.
Yeah, that's right. It was a very sarcastic comment. It was great.
But we wonder, like, and I'll tell you this just from a Texas perspective, and we know that we're talking to people all over the country. But if we know that it's happening in Texas, we know that it's for sure happening in leftist states as well.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I'm on the Human Services Committee in the Texas Legislature, which means we oversee Medicaid. It was revealed to me by the Inspector General this last week in our informational hearing we just had, where they have to give a report of the Inspector General's office to us in order for us to codify and appropriate for more funds. So literally the Inspector General looks at us and he goes, hey, we want you to know Medicaid fraud is happening in Texas. And the question is, oh, how much? And, I'm like, hey, what's that number? How much money? And I'm thinking, quite literally, when I'm thinking of Medicaid fraud, I'm thinking it's got to be a big industry, $100 million, $250 million, which sounds insane, but I'm like, it's got to be if we're really getting robbed. He doesn't say $100 million. He doesn't say $500 million. The Inspector General said that we have $5 billion in Medicaid fraud being taken from the state of Texas over this last biennium. Why does that matter? Because this initiative of DOGE and this initiative of Make America Healthy Again with RFK and HHS is simply to put us back on track in America where money is not the motive, but health is.
Yeah.
And so if we have $5 billion in Medicaid fraud, then you can guarantee that the people who are in charge of medical decisions throughout the government are not making wise decisions on where that money should go.
Yeah.
And what more does that say about their reliability? And should we trust, I think this is I'm going to let Josh answer it first, but should we trust the government with our medical decisions?
Yes.
And a hurricane tells us why.
Absolutely not. No, it's so true. One thing in connection a little bit with that is one thing that really stood out to me also is when Trump was talking about rolling back the bureaucratic state, right?
Yeah.
Which includes the health and all. He's talking about rolling back the bureaucratic state, putting that power back into the executive office, for which the Constitution actually expresses. And so as they're doing that, the Democrats are sitting here putting up signs and pointing at his cabinet members like Elon Musk, who they can't stand. And now he's like the new enemy. And they're pointing at him going, yeah, but you've given him all the power. Yeah, duh. He's a cabinet member. He's an executive department member. Literally, that's what every president does. But you're not mad at any of them. You know why? Because they preserve the power for them. Even include George Bush. They preserve the bureaucratic state's power. Donald Trump, the first time since really Reagan, and even Reagan didn't do this much, but Donald Trump for the first time is rolling back all the power and reining it into the executive department. And this current generation is not used to that. They're not used to seeing the bureaucratic state. We've ceded too much power to them. And so as the Democrats are pointing at them, I'm like, y'all clearly haven't even read the Constitution, which scares me because you're representing some of the most powerful positions in our country, and you're constitutionally illiterate. You shouldn't even be in that position. Anyway, that's what really bothered me. But it is to the point of health as well. They don't know why. They're mad that RFK's in that position. Well, good. He should be in that position because he cares a lot about the health of the country.
Well, to that note, Brian Harrison, who's a state rep in Texas, was also chief of staff to the Secretary of Health and Human Services under the Trump administration in 2016. And he is my favorite person to talk to on this topic because he said, Nate, if you only knew how much power the bureaucratic state has in D.C., you would only then realize how little power Congress has in D.C.
Wow.
And it's because there has been so much executive power given to these agencies that the irony of what you're saying, and I'm just repeating what you just said, but it's such an important point, is they are ticked. And by they, I mean the left, and really even some on the left are kind of excited that we're cutting spending because that's going to be more money in Americans' pockets. Yeah. But looking at it, they're so terrified. I don't believe just because Elon is cutting these horrifically, disingenuous and corrupt programs like USAID. But what I do know is that they're terrified that the Americans are waking up to how much power that bureaucrats have. And it's like, whoa. Elon can't do this. And it's like, no, actually.
And how much money they've been laundering.
Yeah. It's like, no, actually, Elon can do this. And maybe, and I think this is important to note, maybe we should put laws in place where bureaucrats don't have that much power. Yeah. But I want to do it when Elon's done.
Yeah.
So,
actually,
we'll let him cook.
I was going to say, I have actually a list of everything that Trump had listed.
Take us through it.
Okay, I'm going to go through it. First one is $22 billion for housing and cars for illegal aliens.
Wait, is this what they've cut or what they found?
This is what they've cut.
Okay.
They've cut this. So they said $22 billion for housing and cars for illegal aliens, $45 million for DEI in Burma. I don't even know where Burma is.
DEI?
DEI.
In Burma.
In Burma, yes.
I would like to see the data on what races are represented in Burma because I doubt DEI is possible because most countries have a majority population of the origin of that country.
Exactly. This is the one that kind of confused me because he said it was $40 million for sedentary migrants.
They said, what is that?
Yeah, he's like,
Oh, yeah,
what
he
is
didn't
that?
know
And
what
I kept
that
thinking
was.
to myself, what is that?
I gotta
Really, what
Google
is
it.
that?
Keep going.
Sedentary
pull it up.
migrants, 8 million to promote LGBTQ plus in Africa. And he mentioned Lesotho, but I don't know where that is either.
He said he didn't know what it was.
Yeah, he looked at me. He's like, does anybody
Literally
know where
no
that
one's heard
is?
of it.
Well, should we be funding it if you can't define it?
Exactly.
Yeah, that's right.
60 million for indigenous and Afro-Colombian empowerment in Central America. 8
Nice.
million for mice transgender surgeries. I don't know why that is even a thing.
Well, you got to think about how many
little.
mice are suicidal.
Yeah, that's right. If I were a mouse, I would
Seriously.
think it too.
Oh man, 32 million for propaganda in Moldova, 10 million in male circumcisions in Mozambique, 20 million in Arab Sesame Street, 1.9 billion to the decarbonization of homes committee, which he mentioned Stacey Abrams on this, and I don't know if you guys remember
Yes,
that.
he did.
Yep.
But maybe you guys can speak a little bit more into that. What is that specifically when it comes to Stacey Abrams?
Josh was actually talking about this earlier and how it relates to weather patterns. So I want you to take this.
I don't exactly remember. This is a good point. I remember him bringing up Stacey Abrams and how she was involved, but I don't remember what extent.
Yeah.
Maybe you do, Nate. Remember?
I want to say one thing based on, okay, you're listing off all these huge numbers for like crazy spends on things that we are not going to see the ROI from.
Yeah.
But what's crazy is the left. I mean, I think it was on Jimmy Kimmel and like other outspoken progressives are like, well, it wasn't actually transgender. They're not making the mice transgender. That was so wrong. Like that he said that. And I'm like, they're grabbing this one little tiny
No, but
semantic
here's the
thing.
irony. What they're saying is we're going to do tests on mice so that we can eventually do tests on humans as it relates to transgenderism.
Yeah.
So I get it. We're not concerned that mice might be gender confused.
Yeah, right. Of course.
But the fact that we're spending tax dollars on that while veterans are being taxed out of their home
Right.
is the point.
But like also
Yeah.
you can name 50 things and then they're like, well, that one thing is actually not really that. It's like,
Yeah.
okay, you just missed the whole entire point.
By the way, did you guys see, and I don't know if you did, but did you see that Elon cut all this Yellowstone staff and include like the national parks? Because he's like, why do we have so many like people in Yellowstone? This is like just let the land
Yeah,
be the
just let
land.
it be.
But then it was so funny. Elon and the left is like latched onto this. Like they're like so mad about it. Apparently Elon fired the only guy with the keys to the bathroom to help people get out. And so I was dying. I was like, oh my gosh, Elon, if you've made one mistake,
Exactly.
it was like you took the only guy with the keys to the bathroom. But the funny
Oh
thing
my
was
gosh.
their argument was Elon fired the only guy with the keys to the Yellowstone bathrooms. And so people are just locked in bathrooms and they could die. And I had the thought, are we really at a stage where you expect the American people to be so stupid that you think that that employee could not turn those keys in when he was fired, or you couldn't make a copy of the key to the bathrooms in
Yeah.
Yellowstone?
There's deeper problems there.
What's going on?
I would like to address something because y'all were talking about the bureaucratic state. So in 1984, the Chevron deference case was decided, and Scalia
That was
one of
big.
one of the few things that Scalia said. I think I may have been wrong on that and wanted to change his mind. But the Chevron deference case essentially said that bureaucratic departments and agencies have the authority to decide according to themselves within their own departments what the law actually says. So they kind of get to play as sort of judges in a way. Well, that was rolled back last year.
Wow.
That was overturned. And so that's one step in the right direction with the bureaucratic state. But then you don't even need that if you just take the power away from them entirely,
Yeah.
which is what Trump is now doing.
Yeah.
So that was a good step in the right direction. I just wanted to cover that because I think that was largely missed, Nate.
Yep.
Last year when the case was overturned, it also happened right around the same time as the Dobbs decision, which overturned Roe v. Wade and so on. But these were incredible cases. And I love it though, because he's talking about rolling back the bureaucratic state. You could just see their faces getting lit up. One of my favorite parts, I laughed so hard when he was talking about Pocahontas, Elizabeth Warren. And he's like, yeah, that's right. And then you saw the speaker behind him. He was going, oh, Trump, I don't know. And I just saw, she's over there going, she's like shaking
She's
and
just
getting really angry.
laughing,
I was
yeah.
like, man, that's some funny stuff.
Yeah. Well, after everything that he announced that day, I mean, honestly, I haven't even gone through half of the list of whatever
Sure.
he had like talked about that Doge has been eliminating. But
Please,
all
please
in
finish.
all,
I need you to tell me.
okay, well,
This
fine, I'll go
this
into
is
it.
fascinating.
So the next one is
people
going to
want to
be
know.
$3.5 million for consulting contract for lavish fish monitoring.
Okay.
That's
Lavish fish. That's very important.
This Nemo.
Vital.
Not your normal
1.5 million for voter confidence in Liberia, which we
Nice.
don't even have voter confidence
You feel
here.
confident about the voters in Liberia?
Meanwhile, we have voter fraud here.
Yeah, exactly. 14 million for social cohesion in Mali. I don't know what some of these things are.
Well, here's the problem, Joanna. They're not real things.
Yeah.
This is just money laundering.
Yeah,
Literally.
It really is. 859 million for illegal alien hotel rooms in New York City.
Wait, say the number again.
59 million. 59 million. Let me say that one more time. 59 million.
Here's the deal. Anyone complaining that the public school system doesn't have enough money?
Yeah.
59 million went to putting illegal aliens in
in hotel rooms, yes. 250,000 to increase vegan and local climate action innovation in Zambia.
I don't like that.
I'm on a carnivore diet.
42 million
that.
for social and behavior changes in Uganda. Social and behavior changes. 14 million for approving for public procurement in Serbia.
What is up with this focus on Africa
procuring?
and like
know.
South?
47 million for improving learning outcomes in Asia. $101 million in DEI contracts with the
Can I
Department
The
of
whole
just say
continent
something?
of Asia?
Hold on. Let's just say this. Yeah, let's maybe narrow it down, U.S. Asia's huge. By the way, I don't think China needs any U.S. help
Yeah.
No.
on educating their kids.
Not at all. Not
That's so
at all.
funny.
Not at all. Yes.
Most of the countries you just named off, the vast majority of America can't find on a map.
Yeah.
Remember Aleppo?
Oh gosh.
Anybody
Nope.
remember
No,
that?
I don't.
That was it?
All in all, though,
New
from
York.
what he announced, he said $500 billion of fraud was uncovered in our government, and
Yeah,
that
that's
is
crazy.
a huge
So
number.
far.
Yeah, so far. Yeah, and
far.
we're just like 45 days in.
Yeah.
That's just a crazy number to come to the realization of. That's
But
ridiculous.
we're finally getting the numbers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like Doge is. When's the last time they just named off stuff on? Like Donald Trump named the president of the United States naming all the waste off. By the way, here's what we've identified so far. Instead, normally what we get is fluff. We're going to protect the American people. I almost sound like Barack Obama there. It's like we're going to protect. Let me be clear. We're protecting the American people from all the fraud and waste. But there actually is none. And you're like, bro, what's going on? Donald Trump gets up there and goes, here's billions and billions of dollars that we've gotten fraud and waste, and we're all kicking it. By the way, thank you, Elon. Everybody loves you. Buy a Tesla while you're at it.
I love
Yeah.
that we have a president who's not driven by money.
Yeah.
Well, you can tell he's not driven by money because he appoints Elon and then he says, we're going to end the making of electric vehicles. I should say the
gonna be
mandatory manufacturing.
Yeah,
And so
yeah.
it's like, even Elon's like, yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Like,
For the 130, I just keep thinking about this. For the 130,000 people that are over 100 years old, like, and all this money is being undoubtedly given to them, apparently. I'm just wondering, like, if that is like a really in-depth money laundering scheme, or if it's like some remote federal worker who was like supposed to keep updated with that. Is like, oh man, like, was I supposed to do that?
Was that my job?
Yeah.
Who actually thinks that Elon Musk is in this for the money and wanting to steal
No.
Social Security?
he is
checks?
without a doubt losing money every day that he
Yeah.
takes this government
Every single
job.
day.
Yeah.
I'll say I want to shift gears a little bit
Yeah.
because I think this is a really important quote that he said. President Trump said, it says, as of last month, illegal border crossings were the lowest ever.
Yes.
But the quote that I love that was followed by that is he said, regardless of, I believe, I don't want to get this wrong, but he said, regardless of what Democrats will tell you and your former Democrat president, we don't need another law to secure our border. We just needed a new president.
Yes.
And then you saw everyone
Oh my
erupt.
gosh,
And
yes.
that's important.
That was one of them.
That's important because I think we need to understand it's not just that we were being lied to by Joe Biden. It's that we can quite literally tie the horrific invasion that has led to the highest number of human and drug trafficking in the history of our nation,
Yeah.
the highest cartel influence in America that we've ever seen, the highest number of potential terrorist cells that have come into the United States through our southern Texas border. We can tie that directly as an act from the elite Democrats in the United States of America.
Yeah.
They
Yeah.
not only allowed it, I truly believe they caused it.
Wow.
I truly believe they caused it.
Now you're right, Nate. That was a great quote. That was one of my favorites. That was at the very end of his speech, and it came with a resounding applause because it's true, And it boils down to actually a really simple question, like why do we have the problems we do? It's because we have bad people in power. They don't enforce our already existing laws, and I think that was another Trump quote. In fact, because they were talking about how we don't need. He actually was quoting someone else, and I think I put it in there. But basically, he's saying the Democrats kept saying, we need more laws, we need new legislation. I think that was the one where he goes, no, you just needed a new president. And it's like, yes, exactly. Enforce the laws that are already on the books. It's really just gaslighting. Like that word, that's what the Democrats love to do. Blame, 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 while we're over here doing our thing. And I'm like, guys, come on.
Well, we have to remember that like one of the core functions of government, we've talked about this in so many other podcast episodes. I believe we talked about this in our episode last week, is we've got to make sure that we're protecting liberty. And one of the quotes that was so important to me and should be important to Christian conservatives is I stopped all government censorship. This is what Trump said. I stopped all government censorship and brought back free speech in America. It's back. And people went nuts. And here's the reality. That means that there is the freedom to spew nonsense. But without the freedom to tell the truth can never actually set people free.
Yeah.
And I think this, like even these conversations on our Canceled at the Roundtable episodes, like we're trying our very best, and we are flawed humans, but we're trying our very best to expose the truth that's happening in government, the truth that is at the core foundation of our faith, the truth that even when it's uncomfortable, even when we don't want to talk about it, we're talking about it. And if if the government cannot protect our ability to speak the truth, we will lose the nation.
Yeah.
We will lose the nation that we love so much.
One of the coolest things that was also said in that speech, in my opinion, one of the strongest indicators for where we're headed in our country, we had the best military recruiting month in 15 years.
Yeah.
Yes.
And we saw some crazy stuff under the Biden administration, like soldiers being, so much military equipment being left in Afghanistan, just giving up, pulling out, like no real solid strategy. Also, like you see these crazy woke commercials, like why are we joining the military? Is it because it's not because I want to fight along somebody who looks like me. Like, no, that was always missing the point. But this stat right here, best military recruiting month in 15 years, what it tells me is that people actually want to serve under Trump. They're willing to actually risk their lives for this country under Trump.
Yeah. I think it's also the return of masculinity, to be honest.
Praise God.
Talk about it. We've had low T levels in our elected officials for far too long.
To that, all the ladies watching went, amen.
Hey, the soy boys are out. Red meat is in.
Let me tell you something. Red meat, gym sessions.
Yeah.
Telling the truth.
Yeah.
Traditional marriage.
Yes.
Raising a family, fatherhood.
Yeah. That's what I'm talking about.
Don't get Josh started. Crying. Being able to express myself.
Yeah, that's right. That's soy boy stuff, right?
Oh man. No, but it's true. I mean, this is like, and like the quote that you're referring to is he said, we're getting wokeness out of our schools and out of our military.
Yeah.
Our soldiers won't be activists and ideologues. They will be fighters and warriors. Like what a strong statement.
Yeah.
And here's why I also think we're seeing the increase in military enlistment because young men in America want to defend their nation.
Yeah.
Yes.
They don't want to be involved in foreign wars for the most part.
Yeah.
They want to defend the values that we have. Why would we want to go over and spend our resources and risk young men and women's lives fighting a war whose both ideology is anti-gospel?
Yeah.
I mean, here's the deal. I understand that Russia is a threat to America, obviously. I also understand that Ukraine is one of the countries that most is against Christianity. I mean, they're literally persecuting the church in Ukraine. And yet we're sending our tax dollars to help defend this nation. It's absolutely insane to me. And I understand the geopolitical effects, but I also understand that we are not called to go get involved in foreign wars while our southern Texas border is wide open. Now, Trump's doing something about that, but that doesn't mean we jump right in the mix of this. I mean, the reality is our greatest threat right now is China.
Yeah.
Our greatest threat right now is the amount of terrorists that have come through our southern Texas border.
Yeah.
And so I actually love what President Trump said is he referenced the Iron Dome that we helped fund in Israel. And he said, we're going to have an Iron Dome in America. Now, sometimes Trump says things that I don't quite understand how that's going to happen.
I know. I was like, Israel's like tiny.
I don't know if you've ever seen Israel in comparison to the United States of America. It's like it's a metropolitan area. Like that's what
really
it is.
Small.
I was just there in December, and it's like you can drive from one end to the other in a day and be in every city.
Like literally an hour.
We're gonna have like missiles at Myrtle Beach shooting off.
Well, not in Myrtle Beach, in Greenland, which is now the 51st state. So not officially, but you heard it here first, folks. Greenland is now the 51st state. We're taking over Canada. That's the 52nd.
We own our top hat now.
I'm like this close to just following the masculine urge to go pioneer Greenland. Like, when we get the green light.
This is now my land.
Yeah, this is now my land.
By the way, speaking of Greenland, the Northern Passage actually has some of the most violent weather on the planet.
I knew.
Oh my God. How is it possible?
Well done.
Josh is going to launch our first Greenland chapter for Liberty and Justice just to study weather patterns and how they affect the geopolitical spectrum.
My dad would be very proud. He would love that.
Gosh.
So funny.
Okay, we got to get back on track. So just to really go into this, I love that he talks about we have been ripped off for decades by nearly every country on earth, and we will not let that happen any longer.
Yeah.
And we saw that in his exchange. We haven't even referenced this, an exchange with Zelensky at the White House.
Yes. We could probably do a whole podcast just on that train wreck that happened there too.
Yeah. Well, I mean, looking at the Zelensky interaction, what we saw was we're finally back in the driver's seat.
Yeah.
Because what President Trump was not saying was we're going to be isolationists. That's not. He's America first, but he's not an American isolationist. And so what he was saying is, if you want our help, it's under our terms, and we're putting this war to bed.
Yeah.
Because contrary to popular belief, President Trump literally shifted the nation and really shifted our Republican Party from being one of war hawks to really one of people who believe in peace. We are now the anti-war party. And I think that's powerful and reflects our Christian values. Doesn't mean we aren't going to build the most grandiose and strongest military presence we can, but it does mean we are going to exercise restraint and say we are going to have peace through strength. And so looking at this, what I saw in that Oval Office was not just Trump, sizing up Zelensky and proving a point. I saw him saying we're taking back the way our country does business.
Yeah.
And no longer will we be robbed by you, and you will have incredible gratitude. And we saw that in our vice president, what I believe probably to be the future president.
And that's meekness, strength under control. That's a biblical value because you can't, if you're just passive, but you're weak, like you're weak. But if you have strength, if you have the ability to decimate, to cause harm, and then you restrain that is virtuous.
Here's what I loved about it is he looks at it's a fantastic point. He looks at Zelensky, and Zelensky tries to say something to overshadow what Vice President J.D. Vance has just said. And he says, well, you should be concerned because they're coming to you next, talking about the Russians. And President Trump was like, hold up, you don't get to tell me what we should be concerned about. And he's like, no, he goes, no, you don't get to tell me. And you don't hold any cards. And Zelensky, I think, had like a language barrier and was like, we're not playing cards. And Trump's like, we are playing cards and you have none. and it was just boom, boom, boom. And then he asked him to leave. He kicked him off the White House property. And I am being told by pretty reliable sources that he was trying to get back into the room to say, okay, President Trump will take the deal. And President Trump said, fly back to your country and take some time to think about it. I don't want to talk to you today. And so it's just like, there's this strength in America right now that simply says, stop bending a knee to people who try to put you in positions where you're forced to do their narrative, when in fact we can control the narrative, we can control the direction of our nation, and finally we have a strong leader who will not be taken advantage of inside of that White House. And we saw that. We saw that.
We saw what it was like to live under an administration by which every force in this world, other country, we're blown by the wind. We were blown by the wind for 4 years. And now we're actually back and we're rooting ourselves in something. We're rooting ourselves in authority and truth and everything that we were meant to stand for in America. And Trump is getting busy. He's getting to work.
Yes.
Like we are making up for a lot of lost time. And it's just great to see.
I hope that the church though, doesn't lose sight of what comes after the next 4 years. Because what I'm constantly thinking about as I watch Trump and all the great things he's doing, I'm like, he is term limited now. He will not be able to run after 2028.
Yeah.
Which is amazing that we have that for presidents and not Congress.
Right?
Yeah.
And so I look at it and I go, hey, look, we need to be very cognizant and aware, we being the church, of going forward after Trump. First of all, if you're looking at Trump or the president as its position as the savior of the country, then you're looking at it all wrong.
Yeah.
Hey, isn't that the whole point of this organization for liberty and justice? To mobilize the church, wake up the city and take a stand for liberty and justice, not just under one administration, but going forward for the next 100 to 200 years.
Yeah.
We're looking down, just like in the preamble of the Constitution, for ourselves and our posterity, future generations. That's what this is about. So as exciting as this is, and by the way, I mean, I love this. This is a great discussion. We really do have to be cognizant and going forward and saying, okay, we need to raise up statesmen for public office.
That's
We
right.
need men and
Take
women
advantage.
of righteousness who are going to willing to step into the gap and run for public office. I'm not even talking about the Senate or the House. I'm talking about local level. Run for, I was going to say run for governor. You can do that too.
City
School board, city council,
mayor.
all the different committees that are out there. Whatever state you live in, people have to run for these positions because the local level matters.
Well, I'll add to it. I think the final quote that we have here and thank you, Josh, for putting this together, because I mean, there's so many wins. It's hard to even focus in on the individual things and subjects that he touched on. But one of the quotes that I wanted to read was in relation to DEI. We believe that whether you are a doctor, an accountant, a lawyer, or an air traffic controller, you should be hired and promoted based on skill and competence, not race or gender. Now, why is that so vitally important? Because I promise you that the core heart behind DEI is not a pure one.
No.
And people get so offended. And this is why we call it Cancel at the Roundtable, because we're going to give it unapologetic truth, regardless of how it makes you feel.
Yeah.
DEI is rooted in a racist ideological lie. And it's rooted in this lie that says the only way for anyone that is a minority to ever be as successful as someone who is not a minority is if we give them an upper hand. And if we lower, if we lower the expectations and if we lower the merit that it takes to receive it. Now that's offensive, and it should be offensive to every minority community, that the idea that the only way they can achieve great things is if we lower the threshold for them to achieve it. And so we look at this and we see President Trump declaring this is a brave thing, declaring war on DEI, not because there's racism in his heart, but in fact, because he is striving for equality of opportunity, not equity of outcome.
Yeah.
Because equity of outcome removes your brightest and your best. It removes the ones who quite literally have the ability to do the job at the highest level, regardless of their gender, their race, whatever. We're getting back to merit. And I think talking like you just talked about, what are we going to do after 4 years? Well, I will tell you that there is a scenario in which in America, DEI takes over every part of our lives. This is why I've literally written a bill that we are abolishing DEI practices in county level government, DEI practices in municipal level government, and DEI practices in K through 12 education. We wrote those bills and we filed them in the Texas House this year because we understand that in 4 years, when we need strong men and women of God to run for these offices, there's a good chance that if we don't tackle this DEI subject, they're going to be discriminated against because they don't meet a quota, regardless of their qualification. And guess what? Today, they're claiming, well, DEI is to help minority communities. Tomorrow, it will be DEI is to help non-Christian communities. I promise. This is what it's leading to. It's in an effort in their verbiage to remove bias. They are inadvertently creating a real bias against believers and against people that have the qualifications to do the job effectively. And
also,
so we have to fight.
I want to add to that. Like, I'm just thinking about like people going from high school to college recruitment. Like what this also creates, because it's on both sides, this DEI concept for minorities who actually are qualified. People look at them and think that they're a token pick.
Totally.
And it totally takes away like their hard work. I personally went to a university where they gave me scholarships based on my merit, based on what I did, not on what I looked like and not my gender or anything like that. Yep. And that was a really, like, that was just an awesome thing to know. Like, they actually care. Like, my hard work meant something. Yeah. That matters a lot. And I also knew people who, felt like people see them as just a token pick when in reality, they're the most deserving. So it creates so much division. And I'm really glad that finally we have an administration that's standing up against it.
We have to fight the urge as a Christian community to give in to even the slightest form of this DEI culture. Yeah. Meaning that the people that we platform, the people that we put on a show, the people that we promote, the people that we say that's a valid source for this information, race and gender should not be a part of the equation when we calculate. It should be qualification, merit. How have they succeeded in this field? Do they have the background that gives them the knowledge and experience to be able to speak to this? That is the key. We are talking about making sure we have the right people with the right voices in America. And here's the thing. The only way we achieve equality in America is if the things that DEI promotes are not the things that we valued the most. Yeah. It cannot be diversity, equity, and inclusion. It has to be qualification, hard work, and merit. Yeah. That's what we must promote.
Yeah, and I just want to do a shameless plug here, but if you are interested in learning on how you can run for office and be a part of what we are doing here with For Liberty and Justice, sign up, go to our website. There is forlibertyandjustice.us. We have a program there for you where we train you, we equip you, called Campaign You, so that you can run for office one day as well. And I believe that there's several people who are listening to this right now who have felt that tug. Maybe I am called for this. Maybe this is something that you can do. That I'm telling you right now, the Lord is calling you and this is your yes. Go to our website, sign up, and you can be a part of that.
Hey, well, we hope you've enjoyed this episode of Canceled at the Roundtable on our For Liberty and Justice podcast, where we seek to mobilize the church, wake up the city, and take a stand for liberty and justice. We'll see you next time.